The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome everyone. This is the applicants webinar organized by IPMA Project Excellence Award team. And today with you we will have Greg Schauwijk, which is me, and Paul-Jan Staal from the Netherlands. And we will guide you through the application process and the way to write the report so you can successfully get through the assessment process. So we are sorry for a slight delay of this webinar. We've been waiting for a couple of more attendees, and I guess we can get started now. So let's start with the practical arrangements. In order to have this webinar going smoothly, we have muted all the microphones of the participants, so there is no background noise. However, you can still use chat to communicate with us. And whenever you will have a question, please use a questions or chat function on the right. So you have a questions functionality in the right panel of your GoToWebinar application. So if you want to test it out, please go to the right panel and type anything in the questions, hi or whatever, that you can see if it's working. We will have a moderator operating the chat, and that is going to be Kasia Pachuta. Kasia is one of our office team members, and she will answer most of your questions through the questions function. However, if she will feel like this question should be addressed in public, so to say, she will let us know, and we will address this question during our presentation. If you will have any technical issues, so for example your GoToWebinar will break the connection, you will not have no chance to reconnect or whatever, we also have emergency channel, and that emergency channel is on Skype. You can send a message to Kasia under the Skype ID that you can see on the screen, which is Kasia IPMA Award Office. So Kasia has Skype active, and in case of any technical issues, if you cannot use GoToMeeting, you can still use Skype as a secondary channel. Our webinar will take about 1.5 hours, so I hope we will make it on time. We might experience slight extension of the time in case you will have any questions. We are ready to stay a bit longer, so we can make sure that all of you feel comfortable attending the competition. So, first of all, what this webinar is about. This webinar is aimed at preparing you to participate in the Project Excellence Award competition. So we want to get you through the assessment process, the excellence model. We want to show you the assessment criteria, and we want to give you some hints about the site visit, because that is going to be a bit challenging part as every year, and this is always the most demanding part of the whole process. So the agenda is pretty much as the content. We will start by giving you a very brief introduction to the Project Excellence Award program. We will show you the composition of the assessors teams and the jury. Then we'll take you through the assessment process, and at the end we'll give you a brief introduction to the model so you know how it works for your purpose. So we'll get started with introduction to award. Paul-Jan?
Yes, good morning, everybody. This part is on the award itself, 2014. Greg, I'm not seeing my little arrow. There we go. Yeah. Objectives of the IPMA International PE Awards. These awards have been in place for quite a long time, and the awards are focusing on awarding project management, which prizes to project teams that have achieved and can prove that they have achieved great feats in project management. So their achievements have been extraordinary. And through these IPMA awards, we want to support professional project management as a way to achieve great success. So the focus of these awards is on project management. In addition, we identify projects that are qualified to be examples of excellent project management to the project management community, and that's internationally. There are also some national awards in certain areas, but our awards focus on international awards. We have 3 criteria that the awards are handed out in. We have criteria for medium-sized projects, we have awards for big-sized projects, and we have awards for mega-sized projects. If you look at the criteria, there are 7 of them, and it's to give an indication of which a category your project would be applying for. Only for the big-sized and the mega-sized project, there is a duration criterion. For the big size, it means that the project has to be in place for at least 1 year, and for the mega-sized project, at least 2 years. The phases, completion, one of the most important criteria for applicants applying for the Project Excellence Award is that the project has to be finished. And the reason why the project has to be finished is that one of the criteria that is being assessed by the assessor teams looks at what results have been achieved, and only after the project has finished are you able to assess what achievements have been attained. If you look at the project deployment in the medium-sized and the big-sized categories, in order to be able to assess the project results, the project needs to have been finished for at least 3 months. And if you're looking for the mega-sized project, it needs to have been finished for at least 6 months. Experience has taught us that only after this amount of time are you able to have a good feel of the results that have been achieved, but also the extent to which the clients and other stakeholders are pleased with the project. The next criteria for the award categorization is the budget. For the medium-sized project, there is no budget limit. If you look at the big-sized project, if you want to apply for this criteria, the project budget needs to be at least 5 million euros. And if you look for the mega-sized project, you're looking at a category of bigger or larger than 100 million euros. The number of people involved, this criteria is only for the big size and the mega-sized project. During the project, you're looking for at least 50 people involved at the big-sized projects, and for the mega-sized projects, it's over 100 people. Now, these number of people in the project varies. Of course, during the realization phase, you might have more people involved. These are the numbers that we're looking for. There's also a criteria focusing on external subcontractors or other organizations involved. For the medium and the big-sized projects, we're looking for at least 1 external party involved in the project, and the mega-sized project, at least 3 stakeholders. For all projects, the multicultural characteristics is an advantage. So if the project has a international aspect to it, so international partners involved, this is an advantage, but it's not a requirement of the awards process. If we move on to the next sheet, here we go. Let me just see, because I can't see if I'm over. No, I'm still on the right sheet. The Awards Management Award, Project Excellence Award, sorry, has 3 levels of recognition. We have 4 levels. We have the Striving for Excellence. These are projects that have applied for the Project Excellence Awards but do not win one of the prizes. We call this category Striving for Excellence because we'd like to recognize those projects who would like to communicate and focus on project excellence and are doing all sorts of activities in order to reach the Project Excellence Awards level, but they're in the categories not quite good enough. So this would be the Striving for Excellence. It's the non-finalist level. Level 3 in the Project Excellence Awards level is the bronze level. And there can be more than 1 bronze winner per category. So if there's a large number of applicants, for example, in the mega-sized projects categories, it could be that there's more than 1 bronze prize winner. And this is a decision that the jury makes. So if there are more projects getting the same sorts of assessment numbers, then there could be more than 1 bronze winner in the category. The next category up is the level 2 in the Project Excellence Awards, and this is the silver prize category. And for this category, the same counts, so there can be more than one silver prize winner per category. So there can be more than one prize winner in the medium size, in the big size, or in the mega size projects. And then, of course, the level that everyone would like to achieve, this is the highest level of the Project Excellence Awards. This is the gold. Gold medalists, so to speak, can only be one per category. So there can only be one mega-sized prize winner, one gold in the large category prize winner, and also one gold in the mega-sized category. These are all the awards that we'll be handing out. Just to give you an idea of some of these award winners in the past, if you look at the lowest right-hand corner right here, the first prize was handed out in 2002, and I'm very proud to say that the first prize winner was actually a Dutch project from the Netherlands, and it was Fleur Daniel with a project that they had. And as you can see, after a few years in 2006, there were multiple winners. We have the Chinese spaceship program, which is a mega-sized project, and all sorts of different projects have been entering since then. If you look at 2013, this was the year that we had different category winners, varying from a Chinese project to an Australian project to a French project to a Romanian project, so there were winners in all categories. So this was a large milestone for the IPMA Project Excellence Awards program, and we're very proud of this. Let me move on to the award team. The IPMA Awards management structure is the following. We have a management team consisting of a IPMA Vice President of Awards. This is our German colleague Reinhard Wagner. He represents and is responsible for all awards that are handed out under the IPMA flag. The Awards Management Board, of which both Greg and I are members, is selected on a 2-year basis, and we are responsible for the Project Excellence Awards and the social awards. There are several awards, and we'll show you some information on that later. Now, this Awards Management Board would not be able to do any of its work without the Awards Office, which is run by Eva Benarcek and Kasia Pachuta. And if that's correct, you should all be aware of who these wonderful women are, because you've been receiving emails from them. The Awards Management Board is responsible for selecting the assessment teams. Now, these are the teams that will be carrying out the Project Excellence Awards assessments at your projects if you are applying, and they will consist of 5 assessors, including a team lead assessor. This is what TLA is, and these assessment teams are assigned to the big and the mega-sized projects. For the medium-sized projects, the assessment teams will consist of 4 assessors, including the team lead assessor. This is usually because these assessment processes take a little bit less time than the large and the mega-sized projects. The assessment teams report to the jury, and I'll show you some information on how the jury is selected and who they comprise of. And there is a very extensive process we'll be describing on how the jury decides who is awarded a prize in the Project Excellence Award scheme. If you have any questions on any of the things that Greg and I are saying, please use the chat in the right-hand side here of your screen. So who is the jury? This is a rather detailed sheet explaining how the awards jury is composed and how they are selected. I'll just go through it very quickly, but what we try to have and what's been in place for many years now is that the jury is a mix of experienced award team lead assessors, so they're people who have been carrying out the Project Excellence Awards assessment for many years and who are very familiar with the Project Excellence model. They are also people who have various experience in acting as a jury in different roles and responsibilities. And what we also look for is to have a jury that has knowledge of different geographies, because our project applicants are representing all different countries in the world. We also look for different types of seniority, so people that are very experienced project managers to people that have maybe a little bit less project management experience. We look for cultural diversity in order to be able to assess the different qualities of the projects. We look for consultants as well as industry as NGO managers in order to be able to assess all the projects. We look for successful award applicants. These are people that have participated as an applicant in the process before. Mary Kuchinova was one of the Swiss prize winners in the past. She's also awarded the part of the jury and also a member of the awards management board. We also look for senior officers of the IPMA and as well as the individual country member associations of IPMA. So all in all, it's a mix of, currently the jury, a mix of previous award winners and prize winners, as well as non-finalists, academics, sorry, it's a difficult word to say, so people that are representing the scientific field, as well as project managers, practical people. In addition, the jury is facilitated and managed by a process owner who is either an experienced team lead assessor or an experienced award assessor training. So if you add up all of these aspects of the jury people, it may sound like the jury consists of 20-something people. This is not the case. The jury comprises of 6 people, I think, and is supported by the process owner. The assessment process, and I'll hand the mic back over to Greg.
Thank you very much. And now we will get into the assessment process. And some of you have already participated in our marketing webinar that was organized some time ago, where you could see parts of that process. Right now we will focus on the way this process will look like from your perspective when you apply for the award, and give you some hints on the way you could prepare for this process better. So just to remind you how everything works, everything starts with your application submission. So you start by sending first one formula where you basically provide some general information about your project, contact persons, etc. And later you send the application report. So at the moment you should be after submitting the application but before submitting the report. The next thing that will happen is the individual assessment by award assessors. And I want to highlight this part because this is the moment when you make the first impression on the assessors. Therefore, it's very important that your application report is written well. And our experience shows that many projects pay little attention to the application report, thinking they will make most of the scores during the site visits, but they forget that assessors prepare to the site visit based on the report. So if report is missing some important facts about the project, something that would give a hint to the assessors to look in a certain direction, then these things might be missed at the site visit. That's why it's so important to write the report correctly, and we'll focus on that in a minute. The next thing that will happen is that after individual assessment by each of the assessors separately, assessors will meet together on a virtual meeting, and they will try to find a common view on the project. They will also prepare a set of questions for the site visit. This is the moment where they will already have some general questions about your projects, they will already have questions that come out of their different understanding of your arguments in the report. So you can expect as an applicant to get some questions from the assessors team right after this stage, and this is where you will start getting prepared for the site visit. The next thing that happens is the jury meeting. The first jury meeting is the one where they look at the initial reports from the assessors. You have seen before that jury is a separate team. It's a different team than the assessors. So they will look at the outcome of the assessors' work, and they will ask additional questions for the site visit. So this is yet another point where you might expect some hints about what the site visit will be about coming from your team lead assessor. The next part that happens is that we go to the site, and you will have approximately 3-day site visit on your project, and this is where most of the information is being collected. It's very important to get prepared for this point, because this is the last chance you can provide any information about your project. And our experience shows that most of the decisions about scoring are highly impacted by what assessors see at the site itself. After the site visit, the assessor teams send the reports to the jury, and the jury makes decision on the final places in the on the podium. So, as Paulian already mentioned, you will have bronze, silver, and gold winners. So this is a brief overview of the process, and let's dig into some details and give you some hints on how you can prepare for it. First of all, what you see now on the screen is the awards calendar, and this calendar is also available in your awards brochures and also on the awards website. So we strongly recommend you to print out or save it somewhere and make sure you mark all these dates in your calendars, because these are the main milestones in your application process. So you already see that the first milestone is a few weeks away from now, which is our submission of the application report. It's marked on May 5th. Please try to submit your report earlier if possible. Why? Because you might see that the next milestone is already 2 weeks away from the May 5th, which is just enough time for the assessors to read your application and score it. Which means that if you provide your report last minute, we will not be able to give it additional quality check. If you will submit your report early in advance, the award office will make sure that the report gets initial quality check, and if possible will be returned to you so you can provide additional information before the assessors team will even see it. So it is in your well understood interest to send the application report early in advance. So the next milestone will be on May 19th. This is where the assessors finish their individual assessment, and then on June 1st where they have virtual team meeting. You might see that between May 5th and June 23rd you have a site visit preparation period. Please make sure that you have at least one person available for a contact with team lead assessor, because at this time we will have a very intense exchange of emails with you, because what happens here is all preparations for visas, all arrangements for the interviews, selection of the right interview candidates, agreeing on the main topics for the site visit. You need to have a contact person that is available to the team lead assessor and is ready to work and act quickly, because you have only a month to prepare everything prior to the site visit. Then the next milestone for you will be the site visit, and this is basically the last milestone that requires your active participation. The rest, submission of results and preparation of the report, is done by the assessors team and the jury. The next point you want to mark in your calendar is the award gala, which will be in Rotterdam this year during the World Congress of IPMA. Make sure you will be there, because this is the glorious moment where you can really enjoy the results of the whole process. So before I continue, I would like to ask you a question. If you have any general questions about the process before we get into more details. Just waiting if there are any questions popping up. So we have a question, does the contact person has to be from the project, or can it be a person that is a local IPMA representative? We have both setups. First of all, we strongly recommend that there is one person dedicated for the contact on the project side, because even if there is a person from IPMA helping the project on site, that person still needs to have a good, reliable and frequent contact with the applicant. So in general, typically we have two scenarios. Either applicant handles the entire communication themselves, or there is an assisting person on the IPMA side, but still all the correspondence goes to both the IPMA person and the applicant. We recommend that the applicant is in the loop constantly. We have another question about the size of applications. The size of applications is presented on the slides before, so if you're in doubt how many pages your application should be, please always come back to the table where you have project categories, and there is always information provided there about the size of the application. Okay, so let's move forward as we have no other questions, and the next part is the individual application report assessment. Very important part from your perspective as an applicant. What you see on this slide is the procedure that each and every assessor is following when assessing your application. And the procedure goes as follows. First of all, they read your complete case study, so your complete application report. They go A to Z through the entire booklet. Then what they do is they go criteria by criteria, and for each criteria they read the relevant examples provided in the model. They correlate these examples with your report, and then they document the findings. So what you already can take from here as the first lesson about writing the report is that your report has to match the model exactly, because most assessors work this way, that they take criteria by criteria, they read the criteria in the model, they go example by example, and they see how much of it they can find in the application report. So when you write your application report, make sure you look at the model. You have the model provided to you by the award office. If you don't have it yet, please ask Kasia or Eva to provide that to you. They will be happy to send you the model. So when you write the application, do this test. Open the model, look at the examples provided for the relevant criteria, and check if you provide answers relevant to these examples. There is one thing though. These examples are not exhaustive list, nor they should be all represented in your application. So basically, when you write your report, check which of the examples are relevant to you, and think also of additional points that are not mentioned in the model but might be relevant to your specific project. So don't limit yourself to what's written in the model, but make sure that all elements that are relevant to your project are addressed in your application. Because only after writing the arguments based on the model, the assessor is allowed to give scores. And our process on each and every step of the process is ensuring that the scoring is only based on facts found either in the application or during the interviews at the site visit. So if your application is not corresponding to the model, it will be very difficult for the assessor to write relevant comments, and therefore they will be forced to score your project low, even if it looks impressive on the first look. So make sure, once again, that your application report refers to each and every criteria in the model and that you double check it yourself before submitting if it addresses the examples provided in the model. The next thing that, before I go to the next thing, are there any additional questions about writing the report? So I will wait a few seconds to see if there are any questions about writing the report. Okay, there seem to be no questions. Then the next thing that happens is a team virtual meeting, and there is not that much of involvement on your side because this is purely internal meeting of the assessors. However, after this meeting, you might expect some questions coming for your site visit. I know that you would prefer to get a detailed list of all the interview questions that will be asked during the site visit, but due to the nature of the process, we cannot reveal these questions to you. However, after virtual team meeting, you might expect your team lead assessor to give you some hints on what kind of things they will be looking for when they come to the site. So after this date passes, you might expect some email from the team lead assessor telling you, oh, in your project, for example, we will be focusing on, let's say, clarifying the objectives because they are unclear in the application, and, for example, looking into a local community because that seems to be a big part of the stakeholders management. So you will not get detailed questions, but you will get general ones. Make sure you have a person ready to already start looking into the right stakeholders to answer these questions during the site visit. Then the second set of questions will come after the jury kickoff meeting because they will look at the assessors' reports and they will come back with more questions to you. Once again, what happens in the meantime is preparations for the site visit. And preparations for the site visit, as you might see on this calendar, they start very early. They start right after submission of your application report. So we will come back to this later, but make sure that you already have a person available here so we can arrange for all the difficulties like visas, like non-standard stakeholders, like the video interviews that has to be arranged for those stakeholders that cannot travel, etc. Make sure you give yourself time to prepare it. Make sure you have a person available on your site latest the day after you send the application. You might expect contact from your team lead assessor very quickly afterwards. So now a few words about the site visits. The key reason for the site visit is that we want to make sure that we can resolve questions and issues from the individual and team assessments done before. So we also want to make sure that what you've written in the application is what actually happened. So we want to also confirm the facts and the statements in the applications. But there's also one additional thing. The additional thing is that we want to give you a chance to provide any additional information that you couldn't fit in the report. And we find that many applicants use that opportunity and they come well prepared to the site visit, the applicants themselves, and they do present lots of additional material even without being asked by the assessors. And this is very important for you to remember. This is competition. And assessors are not allowed to explore areas that are not mentioned by you. So if you say no word about, let's say, risk management, we will not ask you about risk management. If you don't say a word about, I don't know, the way you have developed magnificent tools for finances, we will not go there if you don't tell us straight. We can only ask questions about things you have mentioned to us. So make sure if you realize that you missed anything in the application, that you have that information up front and you do present that information during the site visit. Many applicants get a lot of extra points by showing that additional information when we arrive to the site visit. What you see now on the screen is the overall process of the site visit preparations. I already mentioned lots of its elements, so I just want to summarize it. So first of all, after virtual team meetings, you will be contacted by team lead assessor with general questions about the site visit and about the interviewees that they want to interview. then you will work together on making that happen. And the site visit itself will consist of 3 parts: intro, interviews, and final closing talk. Intro is basically to give you a chance to show the project in general. The interviews will be interviews with all major stakeholders. And final talk is your chance to give some closing arguments for the assessors before they leave. Then after the site visits, assessors will stay for 1 more day on your site to prepare the report for the jury. We want to prepare that report as early as possible, and as assessors are coming from different parts of the world, they need to have space and place to write that report, and that's why they will stay 1 extra day just to write the report. And later they will hand it over to the jury. Just one additional comment about the structure of the site visit. You might see introductory talk here. Usually most of the applicants, they like to give us kind of a tour, a factory tour or the project tour, and we strongly advise to give this tour on the first day, immediately before or after introductory presentation. The reason for that is that it gives assessors much better imagination on how the project looked like, what kind of challenges were there, so they can ask better questions during the interviews. So if you are planning the site visit, make sure the factory or project tour is done in the very beginning. On the other hand, make sure that this tour is as short as possible, so you leave some space for the interviews. One of the mistakes some applicants do is that they plan an entire day project tour, and they miss several key stakeholders being interviewed, and that way they don't provide enough arguments for the assessors to score higher for their projects. So some additional organizational aspects of the site visits. First of all, the big and mega projects will get a 3 days site visit, plus already mentioned 1 day for report writing on site. Medium-sized projects will get maximum 2 days, plus 1 day for report writing on site. If your project requires additional travel, for example, between 2 project sites, please plan additional time for that. In the past, we had cases like this, and in the past, when the project, for example, had, let's say, the office in Dallas and the project site in Louisville, which was like half-day travel, we have included additional day for the flight between sites, and that extended the site visit by 1 day. So if it's your case, please plan for additional time. The next thing is the travel and accommodation. All this is arranged by you as an applicant in coordination with team lead assessor. So you will be kindly asked by the team lead assessor to provide hotels and to provide as much as possible of local transportation to the assessors. Also, travel via economy class flights will be arranged by you. So team lead assessor will basically ask you to buy tickets yourself and send the bookings to the assessors. And we strongly advise that it happens this way because you have to remember that each of the assessors is volunteer. So therefore we want to avoid situations where they have to put several thousand euros into tickets and wait for the reimbursement and basically credit the process. So that's why we want to make sure that tickets are already purchased by the applicants directly. If you will experience any trouble with that, if you have any trouble with that, please contact your TLA. We have some procedures for exceptional situations, and we know how to coordinate that if you have any exceptions with booking. The next thing is the cost reimbursement, and I know this is challenging in some locations, especially in countries where you have money transfer issues and this kind of situations. That's why we have decided some time ago, and this is the process since many years now, that all the reimbursements should be done in cash while assessors are still on site of the applicant. So in order for that, make sure that your company policies allow you to do in cash reimbursement. We had several issues in the past years where the applicant has discovered very late that there are very difficult processes to go through, and there were some issues with cash payment of the costs. So make sure you check that early and you manage that risk on your side. Before I move further, I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask some questions about the organizational aspects of the site visit and any kind of payment related questions. There is a question, will you get the names of team members in order to purchase the tickets? Yes, you will have names, and you will also get the passport scans, because in most cases you have to book tickets yourself and you have to provide invitation letters for the visa. So in order to be able to do that, you will get assessors' names, you will get their passport scans, and any information that you might need in addition in order to be able to book tickets and provide visa invitations. Let's see if we have any additional questions. Okay, there seems to be no more questions. So just briefly, what are the activities during the site visit? I already mentioned the initial talk. You will be given a chance to give a presentation, and we strongly advise that this presentation covers the overall aspects of and the overall environment of the project, so you give some kind of a background information to the assessors. This one is to get them into sort of the climate of the project. We will also have interviews, and I already mentioned that we will try to interview every single key stakeholder of the project. And we will also have documentation analysis. As you will see soon, assessors are not allowed to take any of the application, any of the documents together with them outside of your premises. So you will have to prepare for documentation analysis as well. Make sure that you check if you have access to your project archives. Make sure that you have access to the librarians if they are needed to get any additional documents. Because during the site visit, we will ask you to provide minutes of meetings from several occasions. We might ask you to provide baselines in various versions. We might ask you to give us access to any kind of financial or scheduling data. So make sure you have access to all that sources information so assessors can freely access it. At each and every moment, you will be in control of any computer systems that display information. So assessors will not be allowed to touch your computers to get any reports themselves. So you will also need to provide an operator. In addition, if any of your data are secret, because that happens in many projects, you might show us additional information without revealing your financial data, because usually the financial data are the ones that are secret. So if your project has any classified data, please make sure that you have any reports that at least show us some things like trends, for example, the budget consumption rate or whatever like this, so we can give you some score without looking at the data, but at least being able to assess the trends. So of course, there will also be a chance for demonstration, like you can give us a factory tour or showing some databases, showing the project outcome itself. So this is how the site visit looks like, and now to give you also some information about how assessors work, I'll hand over to Paul-Jan, who will make you familiarized with the rules for the assessors.
Yes, I'm back again. There are some basic rules for assessors that they need to comply with. Just to go through them, the assessors are not allowed to talk with you about their observations, achievements, conclusions and decisions, or names and activities of other applicants. Actually, mostly of the time there are regulations in place so that we don't know who the other applicants are. And it sometimes even happens that one company has two projects applying and the IPMA assessor teams aren't aware that there's also another team on site, or might coincidentally meet, which is a funny situation. The reason why this rule is in place is that the assessor team can have an idea of what they think are very good points of the project achievements, but they do and are not aware of the other projects in the competition. The only organization that has a complete overview of the quality of the different applicants is the jury. So it's actually impossible to give any sort of results indication, as we don't actually know. As Greg said before, we're not allowed to take along any of your documentation. At the assessor training, we explain extensively a code of conduct that the IPMA Project Excellence Awards assessors need to adhere to. And these are all elements also of this code of conduct. We are taking all information that we see or read to be classified, so we don't discuss any of the project information that we see with any other people outside of our own assessor team. We are not allowed to take along any of your documents for further investigation, for example, during the site visit. Sometimes an applicant says, here are some of my documents on my USB stick, have a look at them and then bring the USB stick back. No, we don't do this in order to not make any mistakes by accidentally copying any of the documents on our own laptops. It's just more simple to adhere to this rule that we do not take along any of the applicant's documents. We're talking about documents, and it doesn't mean that physical documents have to be present. It's good, but if your documentation is available on a documentation system that we can look at on the computer, then that's fine also. As Greg said, we'll be talking a little bit about the site visit program. It's very beneficial to the assessor team if the documentation, the relevant documentation is available for the duration of the site visit, so that in break times that we have, or when the team splits up, people can have a look at the documentations in between the interviews. So that would be a good idea to have that available. We are not allowed to accept any presents. An invitation to dinner is acceptable, but everything has to be within reason. Now, in some countries, it's part of the culture to show appreciation by handing over some small gift. It's always something that the TLA, the team lead assessor, needs to assess whether or not it's acceptable or not. But in principle, any big presents we are not allowed to accept. Part of the code of conduct for the Project Excellence Award assessors is that also they are representing IPMA and assessing and are assessors as part of this competition. This means that whatever their backgrounds, they are not allowed to give out their business cards or talk extensively about their own business ideals, and especially not to offer any services that might be suitable for the organization in question. Just going back to the documents, you might be wondering if your culture has its own writing, for example, how do the assessor teams and how are they able to read all of these documentations? One of the aspects that the Awards Management Board looks into when compiling the assessment team is that we always have a local assessor present in the team. Now, the local assessor is a very important person because he or she is the person who is able to explain to the rest of the team if the way things are done is exceptional or not. Sometimes you have a question whether you need to find out is this normal in your culture, because in our own cultures things might be a little bit different. And also the local person is able to read all the documentation. And even if we as assessors aren't able to read the writing, be it for example in Chinese or be it in Iranian Cyrillic, you can get a feel of the quality of the document by just having a look to see how they're set up, etc. So that is how we handle the dilemma of not actually being able to read all the text. Okay. Here we go, next site. So after the site visit, the assessor team is responsible for handing in the second jury report. The jury has a meeting and collects and discusses all the jury reports that they received from the assessor teams, and they alone decide on who is going to be a winner and in which category they are. After having handed in the second jury report, the responsibility of the assessor team is to prepare the benchmark report. The benchmark report, let me move on to the next slide. The benchmark report is one of the most important products that come out of this whole assessment process. It's an important document which contains information and the assessment of the assessor team. The contents of the benchmark report is as follows. After their introduction and description of the whole assessment process, it describes the process that we've been discussing this morning, but also discusses the criteria that are used as reference tool for the assessment. It also contains a summary of the main findings from the assessment team per criteria, per 9 criteria, and we'll discuss some of the criteria a little bit later on. The summary is about 1 or 2 pages and gives a general idea. It's like a management summary describing what the team has found during the assessment project process and how they assess their findings. In addition, the benchmark report contains strengths and areas of improvement for each sub-criteria. Now the model contains 9 main criteria and 23 sub-criteria, so as you can imagine, it's an extensive document that many of our past delegates, past candidates have said it's a very important product because it contains much detailed information on the findings of the assessor team. Finally, the benchmark report contains an overview of percentage points for every criteria and a total score. So you get a feel of your score on a 100-point scale, 1,000-point scale, sorry, compared to the other competitors in the competition of this year. So it gives you an overview of what we and the weighting of the scoring, but it also gives you benchmark information on how you score compared to the other applicants. So it's important to remember, I'm trying to see if I'm still on, supposed to be talking. It's very important to remember these dates. The first one is the 5th of May, which is quite soon, but this is the day that your application report needs to be received by the Awards Management Office. The next important dates are 23rd to 25th of June. It's probably best to reserve the 4 days for the site visits, and you can also already start preparing all necessary actions and preparing some of the people that should become involved as interviewees and mark these dates in the calendars. An important date also, which is hidden behind here, is September 30th. On September 30th in Rotterdam will be the awards gala. So that is the date when during the World Congress in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, the finalists and the prize winners will be announced in a very formal setting. Okay, just some information on the contents of the model, and it's very important to listen carefully here. Greg?
Thank you, Paulian. And as Paulian mentioned, we'll get you now to the very brief introduction to the model. And I guess before we get into the details, it's worth to have a look at what kind of values are behind the model, because at the end of the day, we will be looking into this kind of things when assessing your project, and you will see these values popping up in various criteria along the model. So first of all, remember that this model addresses both things, processes and results. So we will be both interested in what you have achieved, but also in how did you achieve that. And those of you who already seen the model, you probably remember that how is equally as important to what. The next thing is that we are really customer oriented in assessing this, the projects using this model. You will see later that customer related criteria are very highly scored, so it's very important, especially at the site visit stage, to have customer involvement and make sure that assessors have an ability to speak to the customer and see how customer judges the project on their side. The next thing that we will look at is the employee development and participation, and we will want to see how much you have ensured trust, openness, empowerment, and all these elements that lead to participating employees. Of course, you might ask in this stage, oh, what if our culture is different? What if, let's say, in our country, people don't like to participate, where we rather see people following the orders, etc. What we would love to see then is how did you encourage people to take this extra step, and also how you adapt it to your local culture. We don't want you to just copy, let's say, the Western culture of business, but we want you to make sure that each and every stakeholder had their chance to act responsibly on their own. The next thing that we will look at is partnership with suppliers. Again, what we want to see here is how we build trust, openness, and cooperation. So any proof that takes us into that direction will be precious. One of the elements that distinguishes Project Excellence model from other project management models is that we look very much into leadership and social responsibility. So you might expect us looking into how leaders behaved, how social responsibility was handled during the projects. And these are the elements that not only have their own separate criteria, but you can also demonstrate them in every other part of your application. And maybe even the key thing is at the end of the values is that we are very much assessing the extent to which you have both learned as you go and innovated in terms of project management methods during the project. So our orientation is really on how did you learn from your mistake rather than how you avoided to make them. So if your project started, so let's say with some unfortunate events, it might be favorable for you to show these events and the way you have handled them in order to protect yourself from similar things in the future. So we want to see the learning curve in your project. So this is the model. You have already heard a lot about it, and now just to highlight a couple of things. First of all, you might see these arrows on the top and in the bottom. One of the key things that assessors will look at is how your project management practices led to specific results. So we will look very much into the results part from a perspective of the process. Just to give you one example, if you, let's say, had a wonderful key performance results, let's say you had a fantastic financial outcome, but you cannot prove that this was a result of the way you have managed your financial resources, that will lower your score. On the other hand, if you had, let's say, not fantastic but good enough financial results, and you will prove us that the environment was very tough, but you had excellent process that allowed you to get so fantastic results despite of the environment, you might score very high on this one. So we will always look at the relation between the left part and the right part. We want to see the results being the result of the project management practices, and we also want to see what happened if your results could have been better. Have you improved your project management practices along the way? So you see this learning loop is built into the way we assess projects. Whenever you can show us how results lead back to the process, make sure you show it. Whenever you can show us how results changed the process, make sure you show it to us, because this is really what counts during the assessment. The other thing is what you see here in terms of size of the boxes. Actually, it's even better visible here. This is the weights of the criteria, and you might clearly see that this, 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 and this have the highest weight. So when you write your application, make sure that in these 4 criteria you provide as many arguments as possible, because you might see that their total influence on your final score is extremely high. So if you miss some key facts in these criteria, the cost will be very high for you. So this is basically how the general model looks like, and this is how the scores are distributed and how you give priorities when it comes to amount of arguments provided in the application. And now it's time to look into the details of assessing criteria. And Paulian, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Greg. As Greg said at the beginning of this talk, the IPMA Project Excellence model is based on quality models like EF2M. This means that also in this model, the Deming circle of Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle is something that we look at when looking at all the different 9 criteria that were presented to you before. The first step in the PDCA circle is looking at the plan. Is there a plan, for example, to implement it in the project on how to deal with stakeholders or how to deal with risk management in order to improve the quality of the project. And the second step would be, I'm looking for my little arrow, here we go, would be in this section to look at the doing. When there's a plan in place, has the project management implemented the change in a small scale? So, has an action been planned and has it been carried out? The next step would be to look at, does the project manager study the results? So have they checked to see if what you've planned and have carried out is according to what you've planned? And then the final step in the Deming circle is act. Having checked the result of the change or the activity that you had planned, has the result of the checking led to a implementation of a change in a large scale or try again? So in simple terms, if we translate it, for example, to say risk management, has the project implemented a risk management process? So have they planned to do risk management? Have they carried it out, and to what extent have they carried it out, or have you carried it out? Have you checked, have you evaluated to see if what you planned fits your project needs? And if you have carried out this check, has it resulted in some changes, which is the acting? Has it led to some changes in your process? So we're looking at this continuous cycle of planning, doing, acting, checking and acting in every single criteria that we assess. So it's very important to remember this, because each criteria is scored on these 4 elements of the Deming cycle. So we not only look at the criteria and the sub-criteria, but we're also looking for this continuous process, or this process of continuous improvement in every single criteria that we assess. So what are these criteria that we look at? The first box are the project management criteria. Now these are 5. The first and one of the important criteria is the project objectives. We're looking at how you as applicants have formulated, developed, checked and realized your objectives based on extensive information provided by all parties involved. This means that we look for what is the quality of the project objectives and have they been formulated and readdressed and assessed with all the most important stakeholders of the project. This is how we look at project objectives. The second criteria that we assess is leadership, the quality of the leadership. So how the behavior of all managers within the project inspire, support and promote project excellence. Leadership not only focuses on the project manager, but it looks at the whole project management team. And it looks to what examples this team sets, and it looks to what extent the project management supports their team members in striving for project excellence. The third project management criteria is about people. It's about the project team members. to what extent are project team members involved in the project, and how is their potential seen and used. So it looks at HRM aspects, it looks at how the project team is motivated to learn more and improve themselves. It looks to see how the project team members are involved in the project. The fourth project management criteria is focusing on resources. It looks at how existing resources are used effectively and efficiently. So we're looking at to see if the project management has a plan in place or has defined which resources are necessary in order to complete the project and realize the project most effectively and efficiently. And then also for all these criteria, we're looking at the Deming Circle. So have plans been carried out on how these resources are to be used? Are these plans carried out? Are they evaluated? And what changes have been implemented as a result of these evaluations? And this is, of course, also the case for the fifth project management criteria, which is processes. In this criteria, we look at how important processes within your project are identified, checked, and changed if necessary. Again, we look to see, have you identified which processes are necessary in order to carry out your project? We also look at to what extent you have needed to adapt processes provided by your company, for example, in order to benefit the project. These are the 5 main project management criteria that we look at, and maybe it's time to ask if you have any questions, because this is the core of the measuring tool that we use. This is the instrument that we use as assessment team in order to assess your project. So I'd like to take 2 minutes now and ask you if you have any questions. Okay, I'm getting the message from Cassia. There are no questions, so I'll move on to my last sheet for the section. This is the assessment table that we use in order to assess the project management criteria. The assessment table for the results criteria is different, but now we're focusing on the project management area. And we look at what I said is the Deming Circle. So these are the columns to see, is there a sound process in place? Is there a system in place for carrying out the process? Is there a system for checking, evaluating to see if the process in place is still the most effective process to be in place? And is there some sort of improvement and integration of evaluation results? The scoring that we do focuses on no proof, some proof, proof, clear and extensive proof. And as you see, we use a 100 percentage point scale to do the scoring. When we do the scoring, we move per criteria up along the table like this, and we end up somewhere around here. As you can see, our percentage points are categories of 5 points. Because this is not a statistical mathematical process, we score on a 5-point scale, whereas 50% is already very excellent, and we're looking to see proof and find proof that the project has realized more than what you would expect to find in a regular project, which is 50. This is a scoring process for the project management criteria. Now let's move on to the next, which is the results area, and Greg is going to take over from me here.
So as Pauline mentioned, you have to be very familiar with all these criteria. So besides what we're saying here, we highly recommend you to look at the model and read the criteria once again for yourself. And now I will get you through the general view of the results part. Results part is entirely focusing on what project has achieved, and it looks at 4 elements of it. One is the customer's perception of the results. Another is people, so it means your team's perception of the results. And the third one is other parties' perception of results, which is basically other key stakeholders like suppliers, local community, etc. What you might see as a common thing here is that I mentioned perceives, perceives, perceives. So in each three of these criteria, we are looking at the perception of the outcome by a given stakeholder. So how customer sees the project results. So we want to see if they are satisfied not only with the final outcome, but also with the outcome of several stages on the way to the end of the project. So this is why it is so important for the results part to have interviews with all key stakeholders while being on the site. Because assessors want to make sure that all three types of stakeholders, so your customer, your team, and the other stakeholders, are happy with the outcome of the project. And the way these criteria are designed is that we always value their direct statements rather than any secondary proofs provided by you. So for example, direct statements might be some letters of appreciation, the interviewee that says straight, I'm happy. The supporting evidence might, in indirect, what we call, might be things like, okay, they have increased their market share, so they must be happy. But until we hear directly from themselves, yes, we've been happy, we cannot score you high. That's why you need to invite these stakeholders, representatives, to the interviews during the site visit. The last results criteria is an easy one, because this is basically your objectives versus your outcomes. So this is very much your KPIs of the project being checked. But there is also a trick here. In 9.2, we mention results beyond project objectives. And I want to highlight that category, because this is where you really can make a big difference in points. Results beyond are everything that you have achieved because of your good management in the project. So examples of results beyond might be things like you have established a benchmark, might be that you've got additional contracts as a result of this, you have increased your company's market presence, you have created a new standard, you have invented a new technology, you have made significant improvements to your process. So anything that you have achieved on top of the project objectives because of the way you have managed the project. Make sure that you don't underestimate the 9.2 criteria, because especially in big and mega project categories, competition is extremely high. Therefore, you can expect that most of these projects have met their KPIs. So what really makes the difference is everything they achieved beyond. Make sure you don't forget to mention that in your application. So once again, I mentioned that 6 to 8 are about perception, and we will assess two kinds of evidence, direct evidence and indirect evidence. Direct evidence is the one we get straight from the stakeholder. So once again, for example, if your customer tells us straight, I've been happy, this is what we consider to be direct evidence. And indirect evidence are all additional indicators, things like they've made money on it, things like there were no complaints, anything that sort of indicates happiness but doesn't necessarily show it straight. So make sure you provide both, but what counts most is the direct ones. This is where the scores are highest. If I remember well, the ratio is 75 to 25 in favor of direct. And this is the scoring table that assessors are using to assess these criteria. And the scoring table basically has 4 columns. The first one starts with comparison with project objectives. So obviously you have to be, you have to show how did you meet your own objectives. Second is comparison with other projects. And this is where we also count on you, because this is nothing else than benchmarking your project with other projects. And we want you to demonstrate us how did you yourself benchmark your project towards other projects in your company, other projects in your industry, other projects in your sector. So for example, you might say we've been building a road, and typical road building project in our country has this and that KPIs, we have achieved this and that. So we want you also to provide data for benchmarking here. The next one is continuity. So, when it comes to continuity, we need to see if the results were consistent throughout the entire project. So, for example, let's take customer satisfaction. Continuity means that customer was equally satisfied or increasingly satisfied throughout the entire project. Lack of continuity would be customer was really upset in the beginning, really upset in the middle, but only happy at the end. Then the score on continuity will be low. So when you write your application or when you prepare for the site visit, make sure you can show us the continuity along the entire project. And then the last one, the key column, is the results lead back to the process. This is where assessors assess if what you have achieved is really an outcome of your project management methods or processes or approach. So you really need to show us, for example, if your customer was happy, we want to see how did you ensure that happiness through your actions, through your approach, through your culture, through your attitude. If you have, let's say, a fantastic financial result, we want to see a proof how that result comes from the way you managed finances. If you had extraordinary quality of the outcome, we want to see how this outcome comes from the way you have managed your quality. So basically, you always have to provide this loop between the outcome and the process. So this is the end of the model introduction. And before we move forward, I would like to ask you a question if there is anything you would like us to clarify before we move forward. So I leave the stage open for questions. Okay, it seems like there are no questions, so let's move to the last part of the presentation, and Paulian will get you through the summary of the webinar.
Okay, for this last part of this webinar, we'd like to remind you of some of the important things that we discussed this morning, as well as some of the dates. Greg, I can't find my arrow.
There you go.
Yep, thank you. We're working in 2 different countries, so we need to do this virtually also. Most importantly, we can't stress enough the time schedule. Please remember this date of the 5th of May to submit your application report. Now, if you have any questions about the discussions or the presentations we did this morning, or you have any discussions about your application report, please contact Kasia from the Awards Management Office. Other important date to remember again is the site visit, the week of June 23rd to 25th. This is when your project and the most important stakeholders about your project should be available for interviews. And then the final important date for you will be September 30th in Rotterdam, the Awards Project Excellence Gala, as well as the Congress. These are the most important dates to remember. What we also would like to remind you before you start writing your report is have a look at the Project Excellence Model, look at how the 9 criteria and the 22 sub-criteria are defined, look at the examples that are given per sub-criteria to help you write up your report. Remember also the scoring matrices for the project management criteria as well as the results criteria, because that is how you will be scored. That is the tool that the assessment team will be using in order to see how you've scored in the different areas. And what I'd also like to remind you is what we find in some of the application reports is that the applicant starts very enthusiastically describing their achievements in the project management criteria. And by the time they get to the results criteria, the pages have run out. Remember that there is a maximum provided to you. So there are 35 pages for the mega and the large size project required, and any extra information that is provided after the 35 pages will not be taken into account. So remember to monitor yourself that you do not use all your pages for the project management criteria and not have any space left for the results criteria. Also, focus on the relationship between the project management and results. So what we're looking for in assessing, if you've changed something as part of the PDCA circle in your project management approach, you should also be seeing a change in the results area. So for example, if you have a employee satisfaction survey in place, if it's led to some sort of comments that have resulted in a change in how you are dealing with your I was talking about your employees, then we should be seeing some of this change resulting in changes in the results areas. So these are the relationships we're also looking for during the assessment process. Again, I think we're reminding you, and we do find that it's very important to mark these dates. Sometimes we have applicants saying, can we do the site visit maybe a week earlier or a week later? Right now I would say no, please don't ask us to do this, because these dates have also been put in the diaries of the assessors who have been trained in February. So these dates have been in everyone's diaries for the past months, so it's quite difficult, let's just say impossible, to change these dates. So please adhere to these dates. This is the final sheet of our webinar, and we'd like to know if you have any comments, if you have any ideas, if you have suggestions, if you have questions. Please use the chat, please type up your questions and let us know what you think. And if not, then we'd like to finish the session for this morning. And we seem to be right on time. So let us know if you have any questions or any comments, please.
Where can I get a list of the 22 sub-criteria? You can download the Project Excellence Model brochure from the IPMA website in the awards category. You can also ask the awards office, and Kasia will send you the brochure that contains all 22 criteria with all the examples that we have mentioned before. So if you don't have it yet, please check with the awards office. They will be happy to provide you with that list.
It looks like there's another question coming in, so we'll wait for a few seconds. Kasia has commented that the sub-criteria are defined in the model definition of the Excellence Award, and she will send it to all applicants. So in order to help you, you will receive the sub-criteria from the Awards Management Office soon.
So are there any additional questions? That's a very good question. The question is it specified that we should follow the ICB or any project management standard fitting the criteria with surface? You can follow, yeah, William, you want to answer this?
No, I'm sorry, I said suffice.
Yeah.
You can answer.
Suffice. And this is a very good question, and this is actually the question where we're very proud of the answer, because the model that we are using, Project Excellence model, is what we call method agnostic. So it does not require you to use any specific project management methodology. So when you fill in the criteria, just follow the model, and you can use any project management methodology for your project. So if you've been running your project according to PRINCE, mention the PRINCE elements that you've been following in the report under relevant Project Excellence Model criteria. If you've been following, let's say, the PMI's approach, you can refer to those processes freely. Just make sure you refer to them in the right Project Excellence Model criteria. So if you really focus on the Excellence Model criteria and following the points underneath in the content, you can use any project management methodology that your project has has followed, and you can openly speak about it to the assessors. We are not scoring we are not scoring you lower or higher if you followed any other methodology. We want to make sure that you followed the methodology that was right for your project. So if you have used PRINCE, if you have used PMI, PMBOK, if you have used any other methodology available on the market, feel free to mention that. Just make sure that you put relevant arguments under the relevant parts of the model.
Shall I answer this one? There's a question also coming in regarding the recommendation letter from the customer. The question is this a letter from any customer saying that the project is excellent? No. What we're looking for is proof that the client of the project is satisfied and better even, more than satisfied with the end result of the project. So the customer, you should translate to the client saying that he's very satisfied with the project and the processes leading up to the project. Customer satisfaction is about the user of the end product. If you as an applicant can provide proof that the users of your project results are satisfied, then that's good, because it'll provide proof to the assessor team that also the customers are satisfied with what they have received and are using. And this is why we need the project to be finished, so that we can also ask customers, users of the project or the service, what they think. Is the project providing them with more than what they expected? Then that would be proof of an excellent project. I hope this is enough explanation.
I'm thinking, Fabian, also to give one example. I think the one that would fit most to this question and the user versus customer versus applicant is, for example, one of the projects we had to deliver a train. And in that case, the applicant was company that produced a train. The customer was or the client, sorry, the client was the railway company, and end users were obviously passengers. So when assessors assessed the customer results, they wanted to see some kind of proof from the railway company that they were happy about the project. So that could be a recommendation letter, that could be some report after the project that they sent to the supplier, anything that would show their satisfaction level, so the railway's satisfaction towards the train producer. And in addition, in other stakeholders, so when they talked criteria number 8, when they had the end user satisfaction surveys, so they surveyed the passenger, the happiness of the users contributed to criteria 8, which is other stakeholders. And I hope that together with Fabian's answer makes the full picture.
Yes, another question has come in. Can the customer be an internal customer, like a department within the company? Yes, it can be. We also look at your definition of customer, but it can be another department or where there's some interdependency, yes.
But only in case, of course, if the project is an internal project. So if you worked towards external customer, that has to be the actual customer. If that was internal project, let's say implementation of some methods or building a factory for your own company or whatever like this, then of course this might be internal customer. Julian, want to take this one?
Next question coming in says, is verbal confirmation of stakeholders, including the employees, not only customer, proof that there is a limitation on verbal approvals? I'm not sure I understand this question. I think the question might be is, are we looking for written confirmation versus for verbal confirmation? We're looking for both. So written confirmation, like a letter of satisfaction, is good. But as we said at the beginning of the webinar, the assessor teams will look to interview as many stakeholders, important stakeholders, as possible. This means we will also ask you as applicant to organize that we speak with the most important customer. So that would be looking for the verbal confirmation that they are satisfied. In addition, we will also ask to interview an important representation of the project team. As team lead assessor, I will probably provide you with a list of some of the most important functions within the project team that we'd like to speak to, and we will look at them as being employees of the project team and also ask them some of the people criteria aspects. So there's not only a limitation on verbal, we're looking for both verbal and written proof.
And if written for some reason is not possible to obtain due to some formal limitations or whatever, verbal will be absolutely fine as long as we can meet with that stakeholder live during the site visit.
Yes, also in some cases it's been impossible because the project had been finished for quite a while to meet with the customer who was in another country. What we organized then is a virtual meeting or a interview via Skype. It's not ideal, but this is a workaround that can be acceptable.
So make sure whenever you have distributed interviewees that you also look into video conferences as an option. Many projects are using that. As Paljan said, it's not perfect, but we absolutely accept this kind of interview as well.
Yes, it's better to speak to the most important stakeholders than not to see them. Yes.
Okay, and are there any additional questions? Let's see if we have anything else coming on the chat.
Okay, looks like no more questions. Good. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And from me, good luck with writing your application report. And I hope to see you all in Rotterdam.
And also thank you very much for your time. Make sure that if you have any questions, you contact the award office. They will make sure you get help when writing your applications. So thank you very much, and also see you in Rotterdam.